Okay, whether or not you recall, or probably not if you haven't watched every minute of every video, I can't expect you to recall everything that I do. But I did my compound, which is this control here, was pretty much locked up. So I took that apart and it stank, coolant, old coolant, and I got it cleaned up, stoned it a little bit. So I know that the compound is pretty much okay. It is okay. Now, the cross slide I know is not, because as I feed the oilers, I'm just pushing out, you know, some of the nasty coolant residue. I don't know. It's a bad thing. So I'm going to remove the whole compound with the tool holder. Actually going to take the tool out. I have to work out a place to keep those. So that's going to lift straight off and come over here onto the table that you were on. Okay, and then we're going to remove these T-nuts. And I'm going to remove this back cover. I believe that is a Allen wrench of sorts. Okay, I'm pretty sure I think I might be able to use my impact driver for that. If I can find all the right attachments. I had what I needed set aside. To do another job. So let me go find that. Now, as it turns out, I really don't need that attachment I was looking for, because we're not dealing with any impact. Any reason to have any impact tools on this. Had this plate off before, I cleaned up under it. I'm hoping to find something underneath here connected to the clutch. Well, I thought I had this all finger tight. I do, but I'm just being. can't be turned with my fingers from here, and something's dirty. I'm not lined up. Okay. And there is my ball oilers coming out here. I guess you can see that well enough. So, I'm going to put those bolts where they go at. There's not that many items that I'm going to forget how this thing goes back together. I do want to get a little air over here. Well, I tell you what, I'm really glad I took that apart. We have here these two holes, which are oilers for this cross slide, and they were gummed up. I had to use a drill bit and a pin vise to get one of them clear. So, oh, that was crazy. Everything else, I cleaned everything but the nut and bolt holding the compound on. Here's the nut for the crossfeed, and here's the gib, cast iron with maybe a stainless steel slider on it, and that goes up. And you know what? I really didn't even look. At cleaning this. So I need to get here and clean this face, clean these splines, and maybe clean that screw before I reassemble. But other than that, I am ready for reassembly. I don't know if this is supposed to slide or not. There's a spring on there. That gear is not coming down, and I don't believe it's going to go up either. Okay, so that's the last thing I have to clean up. I have to clean that up, and all this is ready to go back together. And like I said, man, am I glad I took that apart. I thought I was just going to be dealing with some old coolant residue and whatnot, but no, there is now here's a couple holes here I need to investigate, because those are probably oilers for, well, they are. These are oil holes for the taper. Now, since we are not going to be using the taper, do I need to bother with that? No. Probably yes. At least to get anything out of there that might migrate up. Yeah, that's the job for a drill bit also. But we are not going to be using that in any way. I will push some oil down there to bring up whatever schmut I'm leaving. because that's eventually going to get on these surfaces. So just about everything on here is numbered 281. So all these parts were made specifically for this machine. Okay, so let me turn this off. I'll get that other part clean and we'll reassemble this. Man, am I glad I took that apart. Getting the cross slide to work, feed to work, is only is only a minimal benefit. Then this is where the nut goes to hold the nut in place. And the center regular flathead screw, that is for oil. I was going to go in there and hold the... Well, we'll get back to that. Let me get this other stuff cleaned up and we'll reassemble this.
Okay, I have enough time to start this. I've got to meet my wife shortly for the dog walk. So we'll finish that with this, and then we'll come back later and free up that oil screw. Right now I'm going to use it to tighten the nut down. We'll come back later and hold that and unscrew that oil. So I'm using whey oil. So it's going to go this way. No, it doesn't. It's going to go in the proper order is what it has to do. Yes, this has to come off. Okay. Now this can go on. Wooden handled screwdriver is right there. So, we go with the second wooden handed screwdriver. And hopefully I captured that. And we have. Did I do it right though? I did not. So off it comes. Let's see if I got the split in the right place. I did have it right. Yeah, it's always good to check. It looks like all that second screwdriver thing was unnecessary anyway. Okay, it feels like it's flush back there. There goes the screwdriver. Okay. Very good. Now, I believe the gib goes in. And that goes like this. And this is the rear. Okay, this is the forward. Okay, I'm going to back this one out. Make sure I'm not getting that cross-threaded. I feel like it is cross-threading. Okay, need to back this out. I'm backing this out until I can get that give in far enough that I can screw it. It's not interfering with this screw. I don't feel like that gives in right, mostly because of this wear here. This is how it goes in. No question about it. Okay, now that's driving it in, so I want to take this and drive it back the other way. And this is driving it in. Come back just a hair. Drive this in a hair. This is way out of its motion here. So this is its travel, not right here. So I can come back and tighten that up later. Okay, so next, we got the nut, we got to get the screw in there. And I think it's time for me to pause, go walk the dogs. Okay, I'm back from walking the dogs, and I'm walking the dogs and I'm, thinking about this and that. And one thing is, not to rush this, putting this thing back together. And I must engage that up there somehow. And I just don't feel like I oiled that give. That one up front must capture this one. Maybe not, maybe not. Maybe this captures it. Yeah. Now, there's plenty of oil on there. It's not as clean as I'd like. But I just wasn't sure. But I'm so glad to have discovered those clogged oil lines. Part of what oils this cross slide. Okay, we're going to leave that a bit loose. I don't know why I want to travel way up there. It doesn't need to go up there. This is it right here. Now this is why I would like to have gotten this taper back, so I could bring this back further. I think I'm going to put a line on here to help me remember not to go. I'll tell you what, I just need to not go back further than that point there. So I believe that's what's locking up the clutch, is when I bring this thing all the way back. Okay, this is a piece I don't have the parts for. There's something that goes in here, and then it connects to the handle mechanism or assembly. Okay, let's get you guys here. Let's get some oil in this pathway because it's supposed to be there. And 14 degrees there. Okay, so what's next? Next will be the screw. Okay. And there. Need to get past that. Oh, there we go. Now we're in there. Now we're screwing. And I didn't anticipate this problem. There it is. I'm having trouble getting the screw. Started on that nut. Maybe I'm going the wrong way. Yes, I was going the wrong way. If you notice, you probably can't see it, but I am turning this. No, I'm not. I'm turning it, but it is still locked up. That's discouraging. So it goes deeper than where I was at. Is there anything I can do at this point? I think removing the saddle would be the next step to get down in that mechanism. So, what do we do? Okay, I say we put it back together, and we'll come back to that. I need to hold that while I unscrew this screw. It's probably something I should have done while I had it apart, but I'll work on that. I got a spanner that might do that. Well, that's disheartening. I really thought that was going to be freed up. Well, let's see what the bottom of this looks like. The bottom of this looks clean and heavy. I said 28 degrees. It is, I said 14. And it is 18. I'm just going to leave it at 14. In case I ever do any threading, I'll be all set with that. Well, I'm kind of bummed out now. But I shouldn't be, because I just solved a giant problem. Okay, so 3/16 socket head screws. And this is the bottom right. Probably should have cleaned these things, but oh well. Okay. So imagine I take the saddle off. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 of these big screws on top of the saddle. And I don't think the back is held on by anything but gravity. No, there's a plate on the back screwed up from the bottom that keeps that on, so that's not a problem. And I imagine, I don't know, all 8 of those screws have to be taken off to get that saddle off. I think I would try just the outside 2 first. And then the inside 2. Because these other ones are obviously holding some kind of gear cluster, holding something together, holding something to the bottom of the apron. I don't want to unscrew that and then drop something. And maybe the way to go at it would be to go in through this whole section comes off. This large crank, the plate it is on, is screwed in. And that would give me a chance to seal that, putting it back together, because it is seeping oil all across the top. And it's going to be coming from the top of the apron, actually. It may not be coming up in that crack. It could be, more likely it's coming, because it's the oil. And it's getting oily right here, so it could be squeezing out there and running down that wall, that face. And I haven't given up hope for the cross-feed clutch just yet. Because we have gone in there and moved some things around. It's possible we just jogged something the right way. And I should have activated that screw a little more while I had access to it. Although it's turning fine, because you can watch it turn here. It's turning. You know, that's turning that spline here.
Well, 15 minutes ago, train came by. It's always very soothing. "2:15 a.m. Oh, couldn't have happened at a better time for me. Kind of a mixed emotions here, kind of a mixed bag. I'm really glad I got this thing apart and I got it back together. No extra parts. Everything went back together much cleaner. I opened up 2 probably vital oil passages. You gotta wonder what else, is affected by the age. I think all the stuff that's internal is probably pretty safe from the kind of stuff that I'm looking at on the outside, particularly those passages. Being exposed to anything that lands on the lathe gets underneath the inside those dovetails. So really thought I had freed up the clutch, and I think I probably already discussed taking the apron off, and just realized that the apron has to stay on because there's just way too much. It's got 3 feed rods going through it, and I'm gonna mess with that. There's a plate on the back of the saddle that's holding it down to the waist, and there's 8 screws on the top. So I'm thinking, trying the outside 2, and then trying the outside 2 and the inside 2, and seeing if that might just come right off. And you may have to take all 8 of them out. But I think that's probably going to be the way that I get that clutch freed up. I want to, somebody mentioned that I was turning this thing on with the clutch engaged. And yes, guilty. I hope I'm not just hurting anything, but this is disengaged now. And in that position, it's still engaged. Now, depending on the gear ratios, sometimes I can get it to come to a complete stop in this position. The higher RPMs, though, it's not. And I can lean on it a little bit and get it to stop. So I need to find the adjustment for that. And this piston basically has to be able to come out further. This handle needs to be able to come back, which means this part needs to be able to go down. So I need to see what's keeping that from going down. If there's anything in the way. If there is something in the way, then we gotta shorten this linkage. Shorten this linkage up from here to here. And right off the bat, don't see any way of doing that, although, no, there's got to be a way to adjust this. So there is a big screw right here, big cap head screw, Allen head screw. So I'm going to take this tray off. I'll be able to see what's down here below this and work on getting something adjusted there. I hope I'm talking loud enough. I did reverse my motor. I need to clean this plate off. I did reverse my motor back since I was turning backwards there for a little bit. I love having gibs that can be adjusted. And Brian mentioned something about the way my tool was behaving and might have a little slop in the compound, and he suggested just tightening those gibs up all the way if you're not going to use it. And that's the condition I found the lathe in. And it was tightened up all the way that it wasn't untightening without a big lead mallet. But that's fine. I can, I can tighten it up, and 40 years from now, someone else can try to untighten it. My fallback on this is in the last, see if this was 1940, so there's 60 or 70 years. There has to have been bigger buffoons than me operating this machine, and it survived them. So I believe it'll survive me as well. Things to do, eventually get into that apron, fix that chuck. I need to see how much I can take off of that back plate to make it a little thinner, to bring the chuck in a little closer. Need to find an adjustment on this clutch lever here and there. And of course there's all this. All this happiness. Yeah, this is the page that concerns me most. Let me hold that up there while I get something out of my eye. Always, I get a little sleep in my eye, and the first thing I think is brass. Okay, probably way too long of an outtake or outgo or an ending video or. But I'm just saying what's on my mind. I'd like to take those way wipers off too and see what they look like.